Space is not only high, it's low. It's a bottomless pit.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all mankind. Your hosts here in London, Matthew Russell and Jamie Franklin.
Oh yeah, baby, Sun Ra.
Matt, we were perfectly in sync. Just like Sun Ra used to be in sync with the minor chords.
And augmented polyrhythmic shift.
Well, I taught him everything he knows, or knew.
Absolutely, and he was very, very hot on his tonal shaping.
Do people still call me Polyrhythmic J?
Big time.
Yeah, I thought they did.
Only on the street. Only on the street.
It's more of an urban thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So whose birthday shout out is it today?
To Mr. Joseph Percival Joe Allen the Fourth.
Wow.
Bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
That is a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. June the 27th, 1937. Former NASA astronaut. How many hours was he logged?
3,000 hours in jet aircraft. And he's not really a pilot. This guy's like a brain box.
That's quite a few hours, isn't it?
Yeah. He's got a Bachelor of Arts in Maths and Physics. He's got a Master of Science and a Doctor of Philosophy in Physics from Yale University.
Oh, that's not shit, is it?
And his thesis was the studies of odd A nuclei in the 2s1d shell.
Come on.
Come on,
that's not a
in.
thing.
If you're not all rushing out to download his thesis now, I want to know why.
I mean, come on. What else is there to do on a Saturday?
Exactly.
You know?
I'm talking of Saturday, Jamie. Of course, we know we're supposed to get the podcast out on a Friday, but have we had busy weeks, Jamie?
Oh, I tell you what, we apologise, but if you knew what we were up to,
oh man,
you'd just want to reach through the phone or your computer and give us a hug.
Yeah, I got home at 4 o'clock last night after doing 15 hours of shows.
Is this your stand-up again?
No.
You just want to entertain the people, aren't you?
Yeah, no, it was me backstage.
Backstage God
running around getting the show together. I did do a bit of comparing because the compare couldn't be bothered to stay till the end, which was good.
Oh, God. I hope you didn't pay him his wages.
Well, I think it had all been pre-agreed.
Fair enough.
It's what's known as a stitch-up. Anyway, yes.
Here we are. We are still committed to space, aren't we?
Yeah. Here's one. If you want to know what Joseph Joe Allen looked like, he was in the film Armageddon.
That's right.
Because he was the consultant on the film, and he played a cameo in the film. He also flew up on a couple of space shuttle missions. And he was involved with one of the mission scientists for Apollo 15. So he goes way back.
Yeah, that isn't bad, is it? That isn't bad. For a CV, it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, he's been there, done it. So, Jamie, this is going to be a quick and dirty podcast, but we've got a great interview. But I'm going to apologise about the sound quality about the interview. It's our intro to space habitats, and because I've got pretty much the whole of August off, Jamie, I think we can make August Space Habitat Month.
Oh, I'll tell you what, August is going to be a good month, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be great. So we could have a quick rundown of what's been happening in the news.
Let's do it. Let's breeze through and let's massage.
Well,
our brains.
I'm going to start with a sad one.
Go on.
Particularly sad. And that is, of course, Christopher Columbus Kraft passed away this week, which is really sad.
That is sad.
Pretty much the next day, wasn't it? It was Rutger Hauer, your fave. Well, my fave as well, I have to say.
We had a moment, didn't we, over WhatsApp?
What on earth were we thinking not opening the show with that quote?
Can we go back and do it again, Matt? We have to do it.
I tell you, let's finish the show on that quote.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. So, So Jim Bridenstine said, America has truly lost a national treasure. Today, with the passing of one of NASA's earliest pioneers, Flight Director Chris Kraft. Sad, isn't it?
That is really sad. and Jim Bridenstine said, "We send our deepest condolences to the Kraft family." Yeah, sad, isn't it?
Yeah, so Chris Kraft married his high school sweetheart. So they'd been married a long time, and they've got a son and a daughter, Gordon and Christy Ann Kraft. And of course, he set up a very successful cheese company.
No way.
That's just me. Lying. Oh. Yes, flight director. Do you know what Chris Kraft said about the flight director, of which he pretty much invented the role?
Go on.
He said, the guy on the ground ultimately controls the mission. There's no question about that in my mind or in the astronauts' minds. They are going to do what he says.
Wow.
So, yeah, be in no doubt, Chris Kraft was in control. He was the boss.
That is not a bad quote, is it?
There's some pretty big UK news this week as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so the UK and the US have military space link up. So UK are going to be investing $34 million over the next year for a launch of a constellation of small sats to provide live high resolution video, which gets beamed directly to the cockpits of American aircraft.
Oh.
Yeah, and as a result, the Royal Air Force is going to post one of its test pilots to the Virgin Orbit group.
Okay.
So I would imagine what's going to happen there is something, one of those high-resolution satellites being built at Surrey Satellites or something like that.
Yeah.
Will be flying up on Virgin Orbit, maybe from Cornwall. So maybe that will be one of the very first launches.
Oh, yes.
Are these military satellites for imaging down to the cockpits of aircraft? So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. And so lots of British space companies are also sort of lining up to do various things. And there's one called Cobham, which bizarrely is the name of a town very near Guildford, where Surrey Satellites are based. In fact, Cobham is in Surrey, but I don't know whether Cobham themselves are based in Cobham.
I know a Billy Cobham, isn't he the drummer?
Yeah, Billy Cobham is an amazing drummer.
Great drummer.
Who has had some stints in Level 42, weirdly.
I endorse this man.
Oh, yes, excellent. Well, yeah. I have met him, and he's an absolutely incredible drummer, like just ridiculous.
Bit of a ledge.
Yeah, so they're just about to get bought up for $5 billion. That's how big these companies that you've never heard of are. And that's so that they can position themselves for these mega constellations. It's making
I love
parts.
that word.
Making parts for mega constellations. There's quite a few mega constellation news, but we should definitely talk about the Chandrayaan-2 lunar mission.
We need to talk about India. Yes.
Yeah. So that launched on Monday. That was after quite a few scrubs, but that has now launched on the GSLV Mark III.
Matt, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. I don't want no scrubs.
Well,
a scrub is a guy who can't get no love from me.
I tell you what.
What's the rest of the lyrics?
Standing
at the passenger's side of my best friend's ride, trying to holler at me.
Yeah, that's good. Good lyrics.
I think that's it.
You're spitting some good rhymes there, Jamie.
Just spitting fire.
Yeah, so it's going to arrive at the moon round about my birthday, so that's going to be really exciting.
Matt, could you tell the listeners when your birthday is?
September the 10th.
So you need to start. Do they need to start saving now for your gift?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe we should have a big Patreon run for September.
I mean, guys, I'm just saying, look,
a special. If
everyone puts £1 a week away till September the 10th. And then, we could all chip in and buy Matt. What do you want, Matt?
A rocket.
You want a rocket?
A rocket, what do you think?
It might have to be a slightly smaller one than the one India have got. We'll see what we can do.
Jamie.
Yeah.
50th anniversary of Apollo, been and gone.
Yes. Wasn't it
and like
great?
I said, it was awesome. But I really like this feeling of we can just look forward now. And one of
Yes.
those things that we're looking forward to is Artemis 1. And apparently the Orion spacecraft that's been built for Artemis 1 is complete. And that's what was announced by Mike Pence on the 50th anniversary. And if you want to see one of the most incredible videos I think I've ever seen,
Yes.
is Trump in the Oval Office with Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins and Jim Bridenstine. And he's basically sort of like having this kind of open discussion, and he keeps, and he goes, Jim, why aren't we going to the moon? Why aren't we going to Mars? Why aren't we going to Mars directly? Why
can't we go straight to Mars?
Yeah, and just why aren't we just listening to these guys? It's just like one of those kind of things of, are we really running a country like this? This is crazy. The funny thing is, it reminds me of quite a lot of my bosses I've had over the years.
Yes, it's definitely relatable.
The actual psycho ones.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's really funny. But basically, Buzz and Michael Collins can't hide their disgust really for Artemis 1.
Yeah.
But never mind. Soyuz has taken some people up to the International Space Station. Among them, Luca Parmitano, of course, from ESA, a Russian, Alexander Shvetsov, and, of course, Andrew Morgan of NASA have all gone up.
So they'll be there till spring 2020.
Parmitano and Shvetsov will return to Earth in February 2020.
Lucky buggers.
Along with Christina Koch, but Morgan will stay on for later on.
Legends. Well, what I'd give, Matt, to be up there.
Yeah, I tell you what didn't make much of a news feed was, remember a couple of years ago we had the Chang'an 1, or the Heavenly Palace 1, that re-entered, uncontrolled re-entry into...
That's what she said.
The Chang'an 2, which was only, orbited a few years ago and has, had a couple of taikonauts on there. That was deorbited on purpose this time and burnt up in the atmosphere, and that's it.
That's that.
Yeah. I think that was all planned, and they were just a design for stepping stones for this massive Chinese space station that China wants to complete in the early 2020s.
Well, fair enough.
Poor old Ariane have had to scrub the Ariane 5, so unfortunately there's another scrub for you there, Jamie. And that's because of this ongoing Vega July the 10th incident. So that's a bit annoying. OneWeb, which I said I was going to talk about mega constellations.
Yeah, here we go.
OneWeb have opened a massive factory, huge factory near the Kennedy Space Center that's going to be churning out 30 satellites a month.
Yeah, and how many are they getting up there? I mean, we're talking over 1,000, right?
Actually, it looks like it's going to be doing 60 satellites a month. It's 2 a day. It's like pumping out 2 satellites a day.
Okay.
But some of those might be part of DARPA's Blackjack program.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Matt. I've got a game of poker with my mates on Sunday, which is tomorrow. And I would like everyone to wish me luck. I've never won in all the years we've been playing, and we've been playing for decades. I've never won.
You've never won poker?
I might have drawn once and split the pot, but I've never won.
You've obviously got a tell that your friends aren't telling you about.
Well, I think what it is I get a bit excited, and I do stuff where I go, okay, I've got a really great hand, I'm going to go all in, and then I forget that other people can beat me.
Yeah, that's your tell.
Yeah,
getting excited.
I just need to learn. I'm not going to get excited tomorrow, so next week I'll let you know how I got on.
Whoa! Oh my God, Jamie!
What?
We should really talk about China.
Oh, I tell you what, we absolutely should talk about China.
So, that Hyperbola 1 rocket from iSpace has become the first private company to launch into space, into orbit. And of course, they're actually against 2 other companies, Landspace and OneSpace. So there's a lot going on in the Chinese private sector. So that should be really... Of course, their private sector is slightly different from anyone else's in the fact that the government still have control.
Yeah, right.
But ultimately, that's pretty exciting news.
Well, congratulations, iSpace.
SpaceX have been extremely busy, of course. I mean, everyone's getting super, super excited that the Starhopper had its first untethered flight. Not that you could see much with all the smoke and everything, but that is pretty incredible, and it's massive. That thing is massive. And when they put the other Raptor engines on and they start building the other bits to it, it's going to be absolutely incredible. So I think we'll probably talk about that more next week.
Well, our mate Eric Berger on Twitter was just talking about just how big this thing is, right? And how much this launch, when it happens properly, is going to be just history, isn't it?
It will make the Falcon Heavy launch seem like it was a Delta IV launch.
Yeah.
Big whoop. What about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've also launched their Dragon cargo spacecraft to the International Space Station. It's currently, as we speak, chasing the space station down, and that's delivering 2.5 tons of supplies.
Big time.
And it's the third time that one's flown to space, so that's another first for SpaceX.
Oh,
that's pretty cool, isn't it?
It is damn cool.
And my final piece of news, Jamie, is that NASA have announced that they will definitely do the green run on the SLS. So that's actually one that's well worth going to have a see if you're in the area. Is going to watch the green run next year, which is basically the core stage being lit up like a candle and tested.
I want to watch the green run.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch the green run. But we're gonna have to organise our America trip.
We need to do that.
Yeah, we really do. We should go once a year, Jamie, shouldn't we? As a little podcast
we totally should. We'd like all of our American listeners to let us know, like, if we came over, what space cool stuff? Who could we interview? Where should we go and do a live poddy from? Have you got a venue?
And who can put us up? Who can let us sleep on their floor?
We're both clean and
tidy, aren't we, Jamie?
Sofa surfing. Yeah, we're both clean.
And we make an excellent cup of tea. So if there's any Americans out there who are confused about what a proper cup of tea is, which to be honest, listening to American podcasts when they mention tea, I'm in horror. So I can certainly show our American friends how to make a lovely cup of tea, and they can show me how to make a nice cup of coffee. What do you think?
Absolutely.
So that's a fair exchange, isn't it?
You can hear Matt's various impressions. Roger Moore and obviously Carl Sagan. But we'll just keep that as a surprise.
Come over here to do my David Bowie one, Jamie.
That's pretty good. It's not bad.
There's a certain era of Bowie where he talks like that.
NASA announced Thursday it will proceed with a green run test of the SLS.
We'll presume
we'll do that next week. We will read the entire notes as David Bowie.
We are listening to the Interplanetary Podcast.
That is downloadable as a ringtone. Yes, Matt.
It's interview time.
Who we got? We
got Nils Faber and Angelo Vermeulen.
Oh, yes.
One was calling from Belgium, one was calling from Holland. I apologise for the sound quality and didn't quite get this Skype one that good.
It happens. But you said we're going to have to do this again, aren't we?
We did mention that we were going to STech and they're going to be there. So we'll try and hook up in person and get a proper one. But I think this works as a really good taster for Space Habitation Month.
We will absolutely do that.
I must mention, Jamie, that I'm reading a book called Space Settlements by Fred Sharman. And it's excellent. It's really excellent. And that was a book recommendation via the Discord book club that we have by one of our amazing patrons. So that's thank you very much.
thank you so much. That's incredible.
Angelo and Nils, I believe, have both done TED Talks and stuff like that, so they're pretty up on it. And
let's roll it.
Écoutez.
Do it.
The Interplanetary Podcast, putting the ace back into space.
Hello, I'm joined on the podcast by Angelo and Nils. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt. Thank you.
Can you introduce yourselves, what you're up to at the moment, and the projects that you're working on at the moment?
Nils?
Let's go with Angelo first.
Okay. I'm a biologist and a space systems researcher. I'm working at Delft University of Technology, and my current research is actually focusing on interstellar exploration, and we're designing new concepts for potential future spaceships that could bring us to different stars. I also have a background, as I said, in biology, and I'm also involved in space biology. One of the research programs that I've been collaborating with for quite some time now is the Melissa Research Group at the European Space Agency, which is trying to develop a regenerative ecosystem for future space settlement.
Well, before we do a deep dive in that, what about you, Nils? What are you working on?
Well, I'm a product designer with a background in 3D printing, and in the last 2 years I've been joining Angelo in his projects around space habitations and space exploration.
So let's have a deep dive in the mission that you were talking about early on with ESA. Tell us a little bit more about that.
About the regenerative ecosystem?
The regenerative ecosystems. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So one of the major challenges for long-term space exploration is the supplies. If we go to the moon, we can resupply the moon. The moon is not that far. We can resupply the International Space Station because, in fact, it's much closer, of course, than the moon. But once we start venturing out beyond the moon, or once we start building an actual base on the moon, it's going to be really crucial to think about how we can build a regenerative system instead of just continuously producing waste. You don't want to be reliable on Earth all the time for every single supply. Now, the thing is, right now, on board of the International Space Station, 90% of the water is being recycled. So we're on our way, but food still has to be resupplied all the time. And so what the Melissa system actually tries to do is to come up with a regenerative ecosystem that basically recycles all the waste that comes out of a human body. That includes all kinds of toilet waste, CO2, even sweat, takes all those molecules and then gradually breaks them down into nutrients for plants that provide oxygen and foods for the astronauts again. And the breakdown happens through a series of bioreactors with very particular microorganisms. So it's really, in fact, a loop of 5 different compartments that are all interconnected.
Have there been any working prototypes of Melissa built and gone up to the ISS, or is this still very much sort of groundbreaking work on the ground?
The Melissa project is still very much in development. There are certain components that are actually operational, but the full system has not been completed yet. There is a pilot plant that is operational in Barcelona, which basically contains those 5 different compartments, but not all the connections have been fully completed yet. Now, there have been experiments of Melissa components on board the International Space Station. For example, algae are an important part in this ecosystem, edible algae. So these algae have been sent up into space on board of the International Space Station to figure out how they would grow and develop the inside of the station under the impact of cosmic radiation and zero gravity. You could build the perfect regenerative ecosystem on Earth, but of course these organisms might behave very differently once they're in space, so you need to know what happens when you do that.
Has there been any interesting surprises when those kind of studies have been done?
Well, maybe not surprises, but it's more like it's a lot of work to build a system like this. Basically, the life of the astronauts will depend on such a system. You really want to understand the system really well. It takes years to fully understand every single organism within that loop. Now, that said, it is quite minimal approach. If we think about, for example, the Biosphere 2 project, which was this massive project in Arizona in the 90s, where people were locked up with a very complex ecosystem. The Melissa system is using an almost opposite approach. And what happened in Biosphere 2 in Arizona was basically stuffing 3,000 species together in one gigantic greenhouse complex and then locking that up with people. This didn't go perfectly as planned. And the problem is, if you do this, you get a lot of unpredictability, and the system becomes uncontrollable. And what the Melissa system does is, let's start minimal with just a few building blocks and gradually try to understand the interactions between these building blocks. This is a much more secure way of developing an ecosystem for future space settlement.
Who first initially came up with these ideas? Is this an idea that's been kicking around for a while? Who sort of thought, well, it'd be better to try these much more simple approaches?
Interestingly enough, both Melissa and Biosphere 2 were launched around the same time, the end of the 80s. It's basically just two different paradigms that kind of started developing their own infrastructure at the same time. Now, the idea of using an ecosystem in space to sustain human life, to sustain the astronauts, dates back to the 19th century. So it's a pretty old idea, and it's basically Tsiolkovsky, one of the grandfathers of space exploration. He was the first to actually start reflecting on this, and he has these very interesting drawings in which you can see rockets, and the interior of the rockets are plants and astronauts floating in between the plants, and the plants are actually providing the food and the oxygen for the astronauts. And that's 19th century.
Yeah, Tsiolkovsky was definitely a thinker. That's really interesting. You're considering this type of thing of how do you make life sustainable as a key component to space habitation. Is there any other kind of components like that you feel we have to crack before we even go anywhere near, thinking about things like sustainable habitats on Mars or even the Moon, actually?
It's basically three components that we're interested in, and the first one is what I just talked about. It's ecosystems and ecological life support. The other one is the actual architecture and how that has to be built and constructed, and how to bring sustainability into that equation. And the third one is the psychology of living together. Now, when we talk about the architecture, one of the things that's been explored recently quite intensively by different groups all over the world and different architecture offices all over the world is how can we use resources that are already out there in space? How can we use the soil on the Moon or the soil on Mars to build architecture? There are different techniques for this, and this is actually something that Nils knows much more about. Basically, they're exploring how can we 3D print architecture with these materials. But since Nils is a 3D printing specialist, he knows much more about this.
When you're looking at NASA and ESA, they've both put out competitions in the last few years on these 3D printed habitats for either Mars or the Moon. And what you see there is we're actually, instead of making a habitat on top of the surface where you are exposed to the radiation, you could use the soil itself to cover up your structural habitats. And they've done tests on both the Moon regolith and Mars regolith, and they've been able to print out sort of these blocks of a material that is kind of similar to concrete. This is both still very conceptual, but they've already shown it's a feasible way of constructing space habitats on planetary bodies. Next to that, of course, you've got asteroids, which can also provide body to construct a habitation onto or into. We see with the diversity of materials available there, the opportunities are incredibly diverse.
I can talk a little bit about the specific techniques that have been explored in how to 3D print with lunar or Martian soil. It's because I've been collaborating with a space architecture company, and they were involved in some of these projects. Nils, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying something here which is not fully well understood, but the impression I have is that there are like three interesting techniques that are being explored right now. So there are basically like three techniques that I've seen so far. One is to bring a chemical binder like a glue to the Moon or Mars and then mix it up with the soil to do the printing. The other system that I've seen is sintering. Basically take the soil, the lunar soil or the Martian soil, and using heat, you sinter the small particles together. And then the other one that I've seen was a sort of lava technique, where you would melt down the entire soil and then pour it into a certain kind of structure. But these are the kind of techniques that are being explored by different architecture studios in collaboration with roboticists.
The first examples about the binder and the sintering are actually both same mechanical principles behind it. So you put down a layer of material that you heat up in a powdered material that you can heat up regionally, and that way it'll fuse to the previous layer that you've put down below. Adding the binder improves the mechanical properties, the stiffness of the material you're printing, and can speed up the process as well. So those are actually one and the same technique.
Is there examples of that where companies are actually doing that as a construction technique, actually on the Earth already? So, as in, it's a construction technique that we're using without actually leaving the planet.
The laser sintering is one of the most common processes currently used in 3D printing for functional parts. That is next to the FDM technique, which is most easily described as the toothpaste or glue gun technique, where you extrude a filament.
Yeah.
Those are already done on a large scale on Earth. But on the International Space Station, they have this FDM 3D printer, which is created by Made in Space, already available. That's used to print spare parts or tools like wrenches or other specific tools they would need.
In terms of around the world, are there any countries or companies that are sort of leading the way in this kind of space architecture?
One of the interesting places to look at is the NASA challenges that are being put out. The 3D printed habitat challenges. There's been a few, and then you can see that it's actually companies that are spread out over different places. So I don't think there's any leading country at this point. Honestly, some of these architecture companies I've never heard of before, and they seem to have been set up sometimes specifically to develop this kind of architecture. It's basically a relatively new field that is right now really booming, with a lot of new players coming into the field and a lot of new ideas being produced every single year.
Yeah, so it's a really exciting field to be in then, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
You mentioned those three kind of cornerstones, but what about things like energy, the ability to come up with energy? Is that not a sort of fourth element, or does that fall in one of those three?
No, that's absolutely true. You can only do so much with solar energy. And especially, I think, for some of these 3D printing techniques, they do require quite a bit of energy. So the question is how that's going to be supplied locally. Nuclear energy is one of the options and has been used in space before, and is still under consideration. But how that nuclear energy, how that reactor would specifically look like, that is still under discussion. But on the other hand, for example, the Curiosity rover that is right now working on Mars also has a nuclear component. Probably a combination of nuclear and solar will be used in the future. That's my guess. In the deep future, actual fusion might be interesting to see what to use that, because the energy density for fusion is very high. But right now, fusion, of course, is not fully developed yet and is not mature yet to be used even on Earth or in space.
Yeah, I've read a lot of studies of spacecraft using nuclear fusion, and you think, yeah, it's a long way off, isn't it? If we can't do it on Earth, we're a long way off from doing it in space. Is there any particular really exciting thing that you think's happening right now that you think is a bit of a sort of game changer when it comes to space habitation and, well, this whole field? Is there something that for you is just really, really exciting right now?
Really excited about the inflatable habitation that they've attached last year onto the International Space Station, which has proven functional on the first try. I see a lot of opportunity there. And then, of course, the space mining industry, which is going to kick off, will provide us with the tools in space to create functional habitations, because it's not realistic to send out rockets to start constructing these habitations. Once we have like the mining industry going, then I see loads of possibilities of having space habitations.
I agree exactly with Niels. I think two of the most exciting developments are both inflatable technologies. Once again, the ideas of inflatable stations are quite old. Right now we have Bigelow. The module that is attached to the International Space Station now is made by a company called Bigelow, but the ideas are dating several decades ago. And there's a lot of potential there to build inflatable space stations, inflatable space hotels. There's all kinds of ideas floating out there. On the other hand, simply using local resources to build structures is, over the last 10 years, this has been fully embraced with all kinds of beautiful proposals that have been put forward. The interesting one is the ice house, one of the winners of these NASA competitions, using water ice as a construction material in an environment in which it's constantly freezing. The advantage of using water ice is that it's a very good shielding material, and it's very easy to work with, especially if you have a nearby water supply, of course. So there's all kinds of very creative things coming out there. Now, we're still a long way off of having a functional robotic system that can actually print architecture in space. I mean, we're not there yet, so this will still take some time. Now, apart from these technological advancements, inflatable architecture, 3D printed architecture using local materials, it's, I think, also the context, the economic context of current space exploration has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. Elon Musk, of course, with SpaceX, Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin, and then a whole range of smaller companies that are really trying to find their position in this booming field of new space, because that's how it's called, right? New space. And this is a nice, how to put it, a nice counterweight to the more slower and more careful developments that are happening in the larger space agencies, NASA, European Space Agency. They take much more careful steps. And I think some of these companies, they sometimes push things a little faster. They can be a bit more disruptive, also because they're much more lean and they can focus their resources on very particular projects. And I think the interplay between the knowledge base and the infrastructure that the big agencies have put in place, and then the agility of that new space economy, I think that is also a game changer.
You've got China and India as well entering, going to be huge economic powers over the next 20 years. I think that's really exciting as well, that you've got the Europeans, the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, the Indians. It's proliferating on a national and a commercial scale, isn't it?
That is very true. Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got the really exciting things, but what are the things that you feel as though are the big blocks? Because for me, I always think that the psychological element of space settlement and space exploration is the really tough one. Is that something you would agree with, or do you think that one of these other sort of 3 or 4 cornerstones are actually harder to overcome?
Well, I totally agree with that. Within our art collective Seeds, we have a project which is called Seeker, and that's where we explore exactly that. So together with people from local communities all around the world, we've created these concept spaceships, art installations, and together with those local people, like over the course of, for example, a month, we create the architecture, the interior, and we look at how are we going to create our mini society in there. And after the construction is completed, we do these isolation missions in there. And in these isolation missions, sometimes they're only a couple of days, sometimes they're a bit longer, but you can immediately see how easy it is to get conflict popping up. So we also simulate that you have a mission control, which is your gateway to the outer world. And we are, in the last Seeker we did, we limited outside communication simply to chat, which is something that is quite realistic if you're talking about further distance communications. It's interesting to see how easy conflict emerges when you've got a small group of people in a small environment that has to get along with each other and then only has limited communication means to the outside world. From day one, there's conflicts popping up. I think Angelo can talk a bit about the High Seas mission by NASA to explore this a bit further.
Do you know the High Seas program? Do you know about
We've actually had a couple of people who've done similar analog missions. We had someone from the Mars 500. We talked about high seas, and it's quite interesting that the last one didn't go so well, did it?
No, there was some malfunction. There was an accident, I think, and then they had to stop it after only a few days. They actually basically decided to cancel. Other missions went very well. I was actually the crew commander of the first high seas mission back in 2013.
Oh wow.
I did a mission of 4 months, so I lived for 120 days together with 5 other people locked up in the high seas habitat. A very interesting experience. So pretty much a life-changing experience, as you can imagine. The high seas program is really geared towards figuring out the psychology and social dynamics of people living in a confined space, in space, and having to work together as a group over extended periods of time. It's really what is the impact of confinement and isolation on crew cohesion and on productivity of a group and on how do you handle leadership in those conditions. Basically there are really 2 main challenges. Maybe there are more, but there are 2 main challenges that I maybe want to talk about right now. And the first one is, when you lock people up in a small environment, in a very challenging and actually dangerous environment with a high workload, how do you keep that group together and avoid people getting irritated, avoid small conflicts getting completely out of hand? How do you keep the crew cohesion there? Cohesion is very crucial because it's been empirically proven that groups that are more cohesive are more productive and are also just better, are more able to cope with unexpected challenges. As you can imagine, if you're working together as a team for over a long time and suddenly some unexpected problem pops up, you can immediately handle that problem as a group because you're used to work with each other. Imagine you've been living isolated in each person in their individual room, and then you have to come together to handle that problem. That will not work as well. So cohesion, for many reasons, is an important thing. One of the results that came out of the high seas studies, and it was published just, I think, was it last year or a couple of months ago, based on observations that were done in high seas and Hera, another analog mission that is being run by NASA. It seemed that it was very difficult to avoid at least one person starting to trail off and kind of start to isolate him or herself from the group. And this seems to be a very consistent phenomenon, that after 6 months, more or less 6 months, at least one person starts to dissociate himself or herself from the group. And the more months go by, more and more people run the risk of dissociating themselves more and more from the group. It's not fully understood yet why this precisely happens and why this roughly happens around 6 months. But it's definitely something they observed, and now countermeasures have to be designed, and researchers try to figure out what the cause of this is and how this could be avoided. On the other hand, there is also another interesting psychological challenge, which is not just within the group, but it's the relationship between the astronauts, between the crew and mission control. There are countless examples throughout the history of space exploration where there were tensions between the astronauts and mission control. There was even a strike at a certain point on board of, I think it was Skylab, right? I'm always confusing Skylab and Spacelab. So that's another issue. How do you keep communication between those two parties fluent and without unnecessarily conflicts or misunderstandings? And so these are the things that the high seas program is really interested in, is investigating. So high seas is less about testing particular hardware to live on Mars, but it's more about social and psychological dynamics of isolation.
Well, with all that in mind, I know obviously both of you are heavily invested in humans going out into the cosmos, but do you sometimes wonder philosophically whether we're actually capable at all of doing that, or do you think it's our destiny, or do you think that we're really going to have to work very, very hard to make it happen?
I think we'll have to evolve into a spacefaring civilization, rather than it's not going to go from one day to the other. If we have the technological means to do it, we'll have to try and fail before we know how to deal with it.
Realistically, Do you see people living on Mars in your lifetime, or do you think this is a very long way down the track?
I think Mars is quite far down the track, but I do see the possibility of these lunar bases in the southern region. But this again will be more oriented towards teams of researchers and scientists rather than an actual society in space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have this on the poles, don't we? Really, where they're still not quite as self-sustaining habitats, even on our own planet.
Yeah, exactly. So, of course, myself, I've been thinking a lot about these things, and there's the big picture, and then there's the very specific thing. What we just talked about is true. Visiting the moon is something entirely different than building a scientific base on the moon, and that in itself is still something entirely different than building an actual colony on the moon, where people spend a large part of their life. They might even get children there. There's agriculture there. People build houses there. So these are three very different stages. They require a very different kind of approach and technologies, of course. And I guess visiting the moon is feasible in a relatively short time span. Building a station on the moon is already way more difficult, and it's the same thing with Mars. I think, honestly, personally, visiting Mars is still quite a long way off. And the difficulty is mostly maybe not so much the actual surface of Mars, but it's actually the deep space, just the travel time and being exposed to deep space for such a long time. We've never experienced this. We've never practiced this. Nobody knows what's going to happen to the human body when it is traveling for such a long time through deep space, unprotected by the magnetosphere, under the impact of radiation. And yes, you could add some shielding, but you can never shield all that radiation. I mean, there's no way you can technically realize that. So that's going to be interesting to see. But on a larger philosophical level, if you look at the history of humanity, it's only logical we will move into space. It's basically, if you extrapolate what happened in human history, we will end up in space. If you look at, for example, the early history of flight, in the beginning, before even the first airplanes were invented, when people were using balloons to go as high up in the atmosphere as possible, accidents happened and people actually died because they would go way up too high, and they would not be appropriately, they would not have the tools and the technology survive high up in the atmosphere. Right now, only a bit more than 100 years after the invention of the airplane, we are comfortably looking at movies, we're reading books, we're eating at the same heights. So an environment which is actually very dangerous for the human body has now become an area where we're enjoying comfort, and we don't even think about the dangers that are outside there when we're on a plane. So there is this gradual development in which we psychologically and emotionally conquer areas that are more and more remote from Earth. And this will keep on expanding. Now, low Earth orbit is becoming commercialized, and the national space agencies are going to start focusing on the areas beyond low Earth orbit. So gradually, we really build our presence deeper and deeper into space. And I think this is a process you simply will not be able to stop. Even if you would not disagree with it, it's going to happen anyhow. And I think our stance is more like, if this is going to happen anyhow, we might as well step into the discussion and join the conversation and shape the direction these things are going. I think that this is more or less how we look at it. Now, the work that Nils and me are doing for the Evolving Asteroid Starships project, our concepts for interstellar travel, they fit into a vision in which humanity at a certain point will become post-planetary. And the post-planetary condition is quite a particular vision on what's going to happen to humanity. It basically means that humanity is spread out throughout the solar system and beyond in different configurations. Some part of humanity will still live on Earth. Some people will live on the moon and on Mars, but some people will live in space stations and spaceships and maybe even a mining station. So there's all these different configurations in which people can live. And so living on the surface of a sphere as Earth is just one of the options. That's the post-planetary condition. And I think this is really what is driving our research to start thinking about that future perspective of humanity.
I mean, you must have got quite excited when Jeff Bezos was talking about O'Neill cylinders and things like that, that it's actually re-entering the public imagination, this idea of being post living on a sphere.
Exactly. This fits in with the ideas that O'Neill popularized in the 70s, which actually go back to ideas that were developed in the 30s. And then now Jeff Bezos is picking this up again. So if you look at the history of space exploration, I talked about how Tsiolkovsky was already thinking about biological life support and ecosystems in space back in the 19th century. You see how these ideas are regularly picked up again and then sometimes are forgotten again, but they keep on resurfacing. It's quite interesting to see that dynamic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you both read science fiction? What was the inspiration that led you down into this quite a specific path?
We're both big fans of science fiction, of course, the hard science fiction mostly. Like the latest book that I've read was Delta V, which is a fantastic book by Daniel Suarez. Starting to notice is like how these books help me to find my way within the scientific discourse, because a novelized version of reality, by all the references that are in there, you can go and go back to the actual scientific research that they're referring to, and that's how through Seven Eves, which is another book, and Artemis, like the hard sci-fi really inspires you to come up with these more realistic ideas or like a more in-depth background. What inspires me most is like when you go back to the O'Neill cylinders, for example, how we can now revisit them and see about how some ideas were very naive and are totally worthless with the technology that we have nowadays, and how we can reimagine those ideas with the knowledge we have today.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Is there any particular favourite that you have currently?
To me, like Seven Eves was really the one that got the ball rolling again for the spaceships and the societal aspect of it. Without giving away too much spoilers, there's, of course, the book is divided into two parts. And there's the near future part, which is the most interesting bit to see. And then you've, of course, got the Mars trilogy, Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars, which is also fantastic, by Kim Stanley Robinson. And most of his works are truly inspiring. And one more book that I really liked was Aurora, of which I forgot the name of the author. I'll get back.
Aurora is by Kim Stanley Robinson, I think. Yeah.
As well? Okay.
Yeah. Quite sure. Yeah, no, I mean, for me, of course, I'm also a big fan of science fiction. There's no way around. And I explore science fiction both in literature, in movies, but also in computer games. Games can also be an interesting source of inspiration there. And it's very much the same, similar authors that Niels brought up, like Kim Stanley Robinson and Neil Stephenson. But of course, there's also interesting tradition of which we tend to forget, of early female science fiction authors like Octavia Butler, Ursula Le Guin, who bring up sometimes different aspects of building societies in the future, and talk about things like gender fluidity and things like that. So that's the beauty about science fiction literature, that it is a very broad field and there's many different aspects of potential futures that are being explored. And actually the diversity of ideas is so much bigger than in science fiction cinema, which is much more constrained, and I find often way less interesting. But on another note, I'm also a big fan of it. I do read quite a bit of history, and right now I'm reading a book on Pompeii, for example, because I was there recently. And it just and there's of course also the big picture books like Sapiens, for example, that gives you this big perspective on evolution and human history. But I think it's really crucial to for me to get a connection with this, to be able to extrapolate into the deep future. Getting connected to the deep past enables you to think about the deep future.
We've had a really long chat, and thank you very much for coming on and doing this, because it's been an eye opener. It's certainly given me some great ideas to move forward. It's really a pleasure to talk to you. And I couldn't agree more. The Kim Stanley Robinson books are really good. I'm making my way through them right now, and Sapiens is what a book that is. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I'll let you get back on with your busy days, and hopefully you'll come up with a way that we can all get into space quicker than there's going at the moment.
Of course, and continue the conversation there.
The Interplanetary Podcast is alive!
How cool is that?
So cool. And I can't wait to meet them both at ESTEC.
That Melissa project is really cool. That is like amazingly cool. It's
Absolutely.
all about how you recycle waste materials. Basically, without this kind of Melissa system, space habitation is it's a non-starter. So
Completely
it's mega important. So it's really cool. And just having that conversation has given me some great ideas for how we're going to do Space Habitation Month, Jamie.
We all need to get involved, so please send us your thoughts. And are you going to ESTEC? Let us know. I'm going to finish with a quote. I don't need to look it up.
You don't even need to look it up.
I don't need to look it up. I'll tell you why, because it's probably, along with The Exorcist, I've probably seen this film over 100 times. And out of the 100 times, this is my favourite scene. It is mind-blowing. I mean, it makes me have goosebumps just watching it before he died. But now, I mean, come on. And Harrison Ford's face, when he's watching it, is almost like he's not acting because he's being just blown away by this speech. And then this long blink that Harrison does, where clearly a tear rolls down his face, but you don't know because it's raining. And he made that last line up. It's just poetry, Matt. It's art.
Not only that, they literally had 2 hours of money left before film ran out of money.
That's it. And that's not the sort of time you'd expect your actors to be making parts up. But I think everyone will agree that that's got to be up there as one of the greatest improvisations of all time in cinematic history. Shall I go for it?
Oh, actually, Jamie, before you do it, before we finish on this space quote, I've got to pick you up on something, Jamie.
Go on.
You know how I like to fact check things.
Oh, here we go.
You made one contribution to the show last week with a fact of your own, your very own fact, and of course, it was the only thing that people wrote in to complain about.
Oh,
swans aren't the only birds that have a corkscrew penis.
Really? Who else?
Yeah, one listener said that she was pretty sure that ducks also have penises. She knows because her own pet duck likes to get it out quite often.
Oh God! Right, I'm just going to Google it.
So all your larger birds, Jamie, have penises. Your things like your emus and your ostriches, your ducks, your geese, and your swans.
Let's just have a look. I'm just Googling it. Do ducks have penises? Oh, great. A duck's penis is corkscrew shaped with ridges and... Oh, God, I don't want to read on.
Anyway, so now we've cleared that up. I told you I was going to look it up. And
you did, didn't you?
I did. And,
I was just having you all on. I just wanted everyone to Google.
I can only apologise.
Are swans the only birds with a penis?
But it was quite interesting that the others don't. That most birds don't. And I'm so thank you for that, Jamie. I did learn
most cocks
a lot.
Don't have cocks.
Yeah,
I'll put that out there.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. There we go. Well, I apologise.
So, Jamie, let's finish on the quote. Before you start, I'm just going to say bye-bye, Spodcats. Thank you for being so patient this week.
Thank you.
August is going to be
we love
killer.
You.
We're going to have killer stuff in August because Jamie and I aren't quite as busy as we've been in goddamn July.
You want some content, you just wait till August.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you ready?
You hit me with it.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched seed beams glitter in the dark near the 10-Hauser gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.